so professional.
All right, let's try this.
Okay, so hopefully we have gotten those issues situated. I hope that you all can hear us and see us okay. Please let us know in the live chat. But we're going to try one more time and give it a go. Hopefully that fixed everything. So just let Steve know if not. But welcome back to NonSequitur. We are joined tonight by Aron Ra and Blacklab3l Copwatch. And rather than going through what we've got coming up for the week, if you were around, you got that. I just want to mention one thing that we've got on Tuesday, and that is that Kelly Jones, the ex-wife of Alex Jones, will be... I did that the other day. It drove him crazy. The live chat went crazy because I said the former ex-wife.
Yeah, I was like, what, did they get remarried or something?
Yeah, they drove him crazy. So I've been trying to get that out of my vocabulary, but apparently it didn't work. The ex-wife of Alex Jones will be with us on Tuesday. We will be talking about the custody battle that she had with Alex Jones, the many things she probably saw being married to a guy like Alex Jones, and what she thinks of the ban that Alex Jones has recently been subject to. I think this might be the first time she's spoke publicly about it, so that'll be kind of cool to have. But anyway, let's jump right
forward to that. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's going to be intense, and just watching some of her former interviews is already insane. So, yeah, let's jump right into it. We were discussing previously about what a First Amendment...
We were discussing previously.
Yeah, that's true. We actually weren't anything. You couldn't hear us or see us. But, Steve, does it look like we're okay now?
Well, they can definitely hear us. Let me get some audio level checks. If you guys on the outside feed, I've adjusted it down a little bit, kind of a...
Good.
I have to keep muting my mic because I still have 3 dogs that are in very good mood and want to fight right here in my
Aron, your dog's making an appearance every show. Your dog's making an appearance every show. It's awesome.
All right. Audio's good, they said. Thank you, people.
Good.
They can see us and hear us. Now, I don't have a backdrop, but you know what? Minor problem. I don't care. Deal with it.
So we're going to... Blacklab3l, if you would, please... Let's go through what we talked about a little bit before again. Can you explain what a First Amendment audit is and why they are important?
All right. First Amendment audit to me, and I'm going to tell you what I believe it is an individual who goes out to government locations or public locations and tests the ability of that individual knowing the Bill of Rights. Specifically in this case, First Amendment rights or First Amendment auditor, they'll go in and they'll see if they can respect the individual for filming, for asking questions, and if they don't have an issue with that, then that would be considered a pass. If they seem to have an issue, what they'll do is they'll record that and try to educate those individuals. Now, not a lot of the times you're gonna see videos that say pass all the time because there's this common thought that filming is illegal. You have to have permission to film another human being in the middle of a parking lot or out on the sidewalk or anywhere, but that's not true. So what these guys do is they go out, they'll film, let's say a post office or a police station for that matter. They'll go inside, they'll film, they'll just kind of make themselves known that they're there, and if somebody approaches them, they'll see what would happen. If they respect it, then it's pass. If they don't, they're going to continue recording and try to educate that individual to let them know that the First Amendment is not a scary thing. So that's what I believe a First Amendment auditor is supposed to be doing.
And how often do these, either police stations, post offices, how often do they fail?
I see quite a bit failing. A lot of the times, these officers that I've watched and these government officials, they tend to automatically get defensive. I just watched one a couple of days ago where an individual was going inside of a courthouse asking for some documentation, and the girl got very, very paranoid because the camera was on his chest, like he had a GoPro on his chest, and the red light was blinking, and asked him immediately, "Are you recording?" He's like, "Yes, I record everywhere I go. We're in public. This is a public, area. This is a tax-paid building that, I help pay for. So I'm here to get some documentations. That's all I'm here for." A lot of the times they'll end up calling the police and saying that they're illegally filming them without permission, which is not true. So a lot of these do fail. A lot of them do.
Is it, let me play devil's advocate here. Is there a situation where if I'm in public and I'm being filmed, I think a lot of people are under the impression that unless you give express permission to be filmed when you're out in public, that they can't do that. Can you clear that up? Is that something that they can do?
Oh yeah, like imagine yourself as a blogger, okay, or a vlogger. Like say Casey Neistat's a good example. He goes around town, New York City. He rides his skateboard all around town. He records himself while people are in the background. Now sometimes he'll stop and there's people sitting on a bench and he's recording. They can clearly see themselves in the frame of the camera, but as long as you're not intruding on what they're doing or interfering with what they're doing, they should be fine. But what these auditors are doing is that if they're actually talking to their audience and somebody approaches them and says, hey, you're not supposed to be filming here or you can't film me. Well, the most defensive thing they do is that I wasn't recording you. I was talking to the audience. But since you're here, you kind of put yourself into that mix. It's happened to me before. I was recording an incident. I don't know if you've ever seen the video where I was live waiting for another activist coming out of jail, where a girl thought I was recording her when in fact the camera was facing me and my fellow activist, and she just went off on me like straight up crazy and saying, you're recording me. Well, an officer did come by, saw that, and eventually told her that it's not against the law to film in public, and that she just didn't know what it was. And so the officer tried to educate her, and we tried to educate her, but she ended up being what a lot of auditors call YouTube stars, because it's kind of like that reaction that people tend to like to see. But for me, that's not what I like to do.
YouTube stars.
Yeah, I don't like glorifying that. I personally like to educate those individuals, and a lot of the times it can get really crazy, and I'll be quiet. I'll let them do their thing, and people can make their own decision online. But that's, it's a crazy world that people don't know a lot of the law.
A lot of times, and then I'll let Stephen and Aron jump in, but most often the police, either that's stopping them or the entity that's telling them that they can't do what they're doing, most of them end with either another police agency or a senior officer coming out to explain that what they are doing is completely legal, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, most of the time I do see, like say sergeants or other supervisors come out, or a high-ranking official that comes out and says they're perfectly fine filming as long as they're not interfering with business or becoming a disturbance. But I'm going to tell you something though. Like a lot of the times they're going to find whatever excuse so they can make them stop. I've seen, like, you're going to see a video. I don't know if you'll have time for that today or not, but there's a video I did where an officer would actually justify their actions by saying, if you don't stop your filming, I'm going to arrest you for disorderly conduct. Oh yeah. They'll find many different reasons to stop somebody from doing something. And those are the kind of videos that we want to share, because they are apparently abusing their power.
Well, Leon Valley too, I think, would be an example of abuse. Although there are some cases where and we'll get into this in just a second, where I think that the tact kind of exacerbates some problems. But Leon Valley is one of those where I think that they are way overreaching. And do you kind of want to speak to that a little bit and tell us what's going on in Leon Valley and why that's a game changer, I think?
Yeah, I wasn't. I'm going to make this disclaimer right now. I was not there. I was asked to be there, but I was not able to go. But I did follow the story very closely. What happened there was that, if you guys remember, if anybody who's watching it didn't hear about a gentleman by the name of Mexican Padilla, he was doing a First Amendment audit trying to see if they would respect their rights, and he was walking down the street, and an officer came by and almost clipped him and knocked him, to the ground with his vehicle. Well, the officer didn't like Mexican Padilla for the way he was talking to him, and that's another story there. But he just pursued the issue. He wanted to make a complaint against that officer, and it just kind of built up from there. Eventually, long story short, Mexican Padilla was doing an audit inside the building, where there's also a magistrate court and there was the police station all in one building. He asked an employee, is it okay if I go through these doors, because I'd like to take some photos of the area? And she gave him permission to go through, and he went through, and apparently that wasn't allowed. And that's where he got arrested, and that's where the whole big issue came about. So with Leon Valley, with all this stuff that's going on, a lot of the activists kind of defended Mexican Padilla for what he did and what happened. And eventually, a lot of people paid paid the price for going there doing updated audits. One of the biggest things that came out of all that, and it kind of jumps out at me, is that these guys were trying to make the town aware of what was going on by doing massive protests. And I say massive, I mean like 40, 50 people sometimes going there, and hundreds of people watching online. Well, as soon as they get there, the police were ready to go. They kind of, blocked the doorways. They had new rules show up. They started patting people down. They didn't allow phones to go inside the magistrate court area or in the lobby. Prevented a lot of people from doing their normal business. Made people go back to the cars and drop their phones off. Eventually, what happened was that most every single activist that were out there were arrested because they were filming on public sidewalks. They were filming. The biggest
and their
issue
phones confiscated.
Not only the phones, their video cameras, the SD cards, the batteries. Some people had their guns taken away. But here's where I think that Leon Valley did the horrible thing, is that they had an individual come out and say, hey, I just got off with talking with the chief. He said he's going to do a press conference in like 5 minutes, and he wants everybody to come out so he can make a statement. Well, right then and there, and this is my opinion, and you guys can tell me if you agree with it or not, but the moment you say I'm doing a press conference for everyone there, you have just now admitted that these individuals out here are all independent journalists. And now they're working under the First Amendment to be able to record something newsworthy. So they go and they end up talking to the chief, and next thing you know, all these officers come out and they start arresting everybody.
Right. I saw that video, and that's where I think that why I say that on this issue, I think that they were completely wrong, because he set them up hardcore to get them all centralized in one location. And during the press conference, they all come out, swarm them, confiscate their, that's where I believe James got his gun taken.
Yeah, they took the gun out of his car that they towed. That's a whole nother issue that's happening with the towing company that has deals with that city, which we have started to uncover. On that, you're going to see some new videos about that here soon.
Yeah, and with just one more thing, and then I'll let Stephen and Aron jump in. But with the Mexican Padilla thing that you're talking about, where it also went off the rails, because it wasn't at Mexican Padilla where when he went through the where the ladies told him it was okay to go, he ran into the chief of police there and was grabbed, thrown down to the ground, and whatever else by the police chief. Right.
He was. Yeah, there was the video shows one version from Mexican Padilla's angle, and I actually went down to Leon Valley myself from where I'm at all the way down to Texas. At one point, there's a video of it on my channel that I tried to do a FOIA request for the body cam footages, the hallway cameras, or anything that actually led up to that arrest, and I was denied. I didn't get any of that. They won't release any of that. They just I just got a copy of the report today of the entire incident that happened on that day. So I can't release that info yet because they're still, the only key individuals have that. But it doesn't look good for Leon Valley at all.
And a little update, I saw yesterday that Leon Valley has subpoenaed the Google accounts, like the YouTube information, and Gmail accounts for the people who are involved in the lawsuit there too. Oh yeah. They're I guess they're trying to find out. I guess that stems because of the whole threat against the police chief. Apparently, somebody out there who grabbed a hold of the police chief's physical home address, phone number, that sort of thing, which is obviously publicly available online through their own Bexar County website. Once they got that info, apparently trolls, I don't know if we want to call them trolls or not, but somebody decided to put a threat out against them, and that's allegedly. And they're starting to charge auditors and cop watchers and activists for somebody else's, decision to make these threats. Gotcha. Steve, Aron, you want to jump in?
Well, let Aron jump in. I definitely can say what I have to add towards the end. I'm sure Aron wants to jump in on this.
Okay.
You're
muted. You're muted, Aron.
I have nothing to do with that. That's on his end.
Sorry. As I said, I had dogs fighting rather vigorously around me. I had to mute my mic. Yeah. You said that the police don't know or don't seem to know when you can record. Do you know when you can and when you can't. Just for the general populace. When are you prohibited from recording, say, getting out your phone and recording something or someone?
Well, let's say, for example, you're driving around, you see an accident. You can stop anywhere side of the road as long as it's safe, and you can walk up to that scene and start recording, because that's documentation. You can do that. I would say you can record at any time as long as you're within the public area. The only time I would say you cannot record is when you're in a restricted area, something that's not readily accessible to the public, or if you're going onto private property. Like, I could say to you, if you wanted to come to my home, you can certainly record all you want in front of my driveway as long as you're out in the public street. It doesn't matter to me. But the moment somebody comes onto my property, which I pay for, which is my land, that's a decision that I have to make for myself if I want you there or not. I've seen too many auditors out there that get arrested for trespassing without knowing the lay of the land. They need to do their research as far as finding those public areas and versus the private areas. They need to really pay attention to the signage, things of that sort, to make sure that they're not going areas that are completely restricted. And we have a couple of activists right now that are actually are at home because they are not allowed to go out and do any of this stuff anymore, because they were found that they were going in restricted areas and they didn't know. There's no signage, there's no nothing, so they're trying to defend that situation.
Now,
so
with regard to being, let's say you're pulled over by a police officer and you're
Sure.
recording a police officer, or even if you're not in your car, you're out on the street, you're just out on the sidewalk, and the police are there and you're recording. Is there ever a situation where the cops can demand that you shut off that phone?
No, not as long as you're on public area. There could be a crash right in front of my house, and I can record from inside my house. And if they see me, if they come up to me and say I can't record, I'm going to tell them that no, you can't tell me to do that. I'm in my property. You need to do your business. I'm here to just basically record and document what's going on. A lot of the times police will justify their decisions to do what they want to do by using some kind of like, hey, maybe you shouldn't record because these guys feel sensitive about the situation. Maybe they feel embarrassed about what's going on and they just don't want that to be out there. I'm not here to record their embarrassment. I'm here to record the interaction between the police and the individual to make sure that nobody's rights are violated. And in case, because they like to use that term in this day and age. In this day and age, you see a lot of cops doing something wrong. I can tell you there's a handful of videos that I've seen that good cops are doing good things, but there's a lot of things that are going wrong with cops, and you'll find those things a lot more than the good stuff.
Do you find that the what you just said, because you're right, you do hear that a lot. Almost every video, actually, you hear somebody say this day and age.
Right.
But do you consider that to be a reasonable explanation for why they are so caught up in trying to understand why they're doing it? Because often, and you can tell me if you agree with me or not, but where I see the problem is you have these auditors that will be filming in front of a police station, let's say, and the police will approach them and ask, what are you doing? And they either get like the silent treatment or they get the I don't answer questions response. And to me, that triggers in the mind of a police officer who is thinking like this may be something suspicious. And I know that suspicion is not a misdemeanor or a felony, so I've seen enough of the videos to know that too. But to me, if you're trying to prove a point that you can do these things in public by just answering, I'm doing this to make sure that my First Amendment isn't infringed on, is a way to de-escalate anything that happens after that. And usually that doesn't happen because of them answering, well, I don't answer questions, which to me would trigger, whoa, okay, this may be something to this, if they weren't aware of like First Amendment auditors in the first place.
Well, I can tell you right now, a lot of the cops across the country already know that First Amendment auditors exist. They're starting to get savvy to this whole thing. I've talked to current officers whose names will not be given because of the whole thin blue line thing. That's a whole nother story, but they don't want to be outed because they believe in what we do. I think what you're trying to say is that if they come up and an individual like an auditor or cop watcher starts acting I like to say stupid by acting a certain way when a cop's asking a simple question like, hey, what are you up to? What are you doing? If they act a certain way, then they're going to get a specific kind of reaction to that. I don't believe in that. If a cop is coming up to me and says, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, how you doing, officer? I'm just here documenting the incident here. And, I'm just kind of making sure that everybody keeps their, is on the up and up, and that's it. That's why I'm here. I think most cops are going to be okay with that. And I've preached that so many times on my channel with other individuals saying that there's a good way of doing it and then there's other ways of doing it. Is there a bad way of doing it? Probably. Is it going to land you in jail if you do it the wrong way? Most likely. But if as long as
it's not just jail. You don't want to antagonize cops.
Oh no.
I mean, I know white people who have been killed by cops on mistaken identity charges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's dangerous. I mean, I'm at a loss as to, or I'm torn on how I feel about this whole thing, because I understand, unlike a lot of other people, and I understand the intricacies of a lot of this, that there are intricacies in this. I understand that, for example, that the First Amendment, just because it's written in the Constitution doesn't mean that it's going to be defended, because we've seen an awful lot of unconstitutional laws passed by, hundreds of legislators at a time that nobody paid attention to the fact that, this law we're passing right now violates the Constitution, and it obviously does. And it happens anyway. But at the same time, when you get people out who are antagonizing the cops, then you're certainly defeating your own purpose. And more than defeating your own purpose, you're inviting a personal calamity.
Right.
I can't tell you how many videos I've seen, and I mentioned jokingly earlier on in this podcast that I watch a lot of cat videos. Sadly, I've seen more, I think, atrocity videos than I have any cat videos. And things like, I can't tell you how many videos I've seen of homeless people lying in the street, asleep on the street, getting shot by police, sleeping while they're sleeping on the street. Or, somebody who's quadriplegic, somebody in a wheelchair getting shot by 5 cops at once. These kinds of things I've seen way too often.
My whole thing about all this, as far as the First Amendment auditing and the cop watching, is basically to educate the general public, to make them understand that they have their rights. They have rights. A lot of people, a lot of individuals, I can tell you from my town, because I live in a small town, it's called Hagerstown, Maryland. And I did a survey here, and I did about 100 people survey. And I asked, do you believe that filming in public is illegal? 90% do believe that filming in public is illegal.
Wow.
And that's not the case.
Yes. Quite high.
And that's a very bad thing. People don't understand. I did ask a follow-up question like, do you think blogging is okay? Well, if my face is in your blog, you're going to have to ask for me permission to make sure you don't broadcast that. I mean, that's okay, but if you're in a public area, you don't have to do that. And I will tell you that the police in this area are actually not bad when it comes to filming in public. It's just that the individuals out here, they think otherwise. That's because of the way they've kind of grown up thinking that stuff is taboo or scary, or maybe they shouldn't do it.
More importantly, how often do the police understand?
It's not a lot. It's not a lot at all. It's kind of crazy. I watched, to answer the thing that you were talking about earlier, there was a video that I saw that I'm going to be doing a report on about an individual whose name let me kind of backtrack here. An officer was looking for a subject, and they had a specific name. They're looking for this guy. The officer did not have the picture of this guy. They're just looking for a black male. Well, they go over to the house.
They're always looking for a black male.
Unfortunately, they're going to this house and they're looking for this guy. And apparently the cop thinks he knows what he looks like. So they go walk up to this guy and they say, "What's your name?" And he gives them his name. "I think you're the guy." Well, he's not the guy. They end up tasing him. You know what I'm talking about then?
Yeah,
okay, so they tased the guy, they pulled him out of the car, and they end up finding out that it's not the guy, but the officer lied in the video saying that I've asked you for your identification more than once, which was not true. He never asked for the identification. He just automatically assumed that he was the guy.
Right.
And that's the problem that cops have. They have this mentality of that they're this individual that can do whatever they want, and that's not the case. That's why these auditors.
The town I grew up in, we had notoriously bad police. I remember Internal Affairs did a huge report on our police department in this town that I grew up in, where because of all of the abuse and also murder charges, they kept finding people out in the desert that it turned out had been killed by the cops. Mm-hmm. And I remember somebody giving me a positive identification when I'm not even the guy. And I'm like beat up by 17 cops and forced to ride in the floorboards of a car with a boot on the back of my head.
What?
Yeah, while handcuffed.
What?
Yeah, and at some point, and this was when I was 17 years old, I remember, the cops go off to the other side of the street, and I press my ear against the glass, and I can hear them saying, we should have taken that guy out and shot him when we had a chance, and the other guy saying, we still can.
What the hell, Aron? Did you get set for that? That'd have been a cash-in payday right there.
Oh, I'm a 17-year-old kid. What the hell do I know?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was living in a town where the police department had a year or so later, they'd cleared out everybody because they accidentally arrested an internal affairs guy and whooped his ass on secret camera that they didn't know had been installed in their own police department.
That's insane.
Wow.
But they were killing a bucket of people. And I remember crossing again as a teenager. I'm crossing a vacant lot, so there's no street lights. I'm in the dark, and I'm a metalhead, so I'm wearing all black, so nobody sees me. But I remember seeing these like 3 or 4 teenagers come out of a convenience store, and these police cars, 3 police cars pull up, and the cops are slamming these kids violently. I mean, beating the shit out of these kids. Mm-hmm. And I can't believe I'm watching this horror, but I'm just glad they don't see me.
Yeah. Do you think sorry, go ahead.
I'm done. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you think that is, could that be a reason why they're so resistant to being filmed? Because you see a lot of them now, they're wearing body cams. And
they get to turn the body cameras off just before the homicide. How is that permitted? How is that permissible?
And they also know how to cover them up just when they like.
If you're a cop and you've got a body camera and you turn it off and then somebody accidentally ends up dead,
that happens.
Should you not be criminalized just for that? You turned your body cam off. Why the hell did you do that?
I'm just going to say Baltimore. That's all I need to say is Baltimore. Baltimore has been the topic of bad, corrupt cops with their cameras being turned off. But what those, I'm going to just use it, man, those idiots don't know is that those cameras record 30 seconds before and also 30 seconds after they press that button. And they did find a lot of these cops are actually planting guns, they're planting drugs, and that's not just one angle. There was one video that I featured where the Baltimore cops had 4 cops that actually planted the drugs on this individual's vehicle. One turned off the camera, the other one forgot to turn off the camera, and they watched him plant it right in the car.
Happened in California too.
Yeah, and so they're running rampant.
There's a video of a police officer that I think what he did was he went to you see his hand go up and like grab where the body cam is, and I think he thought he turned it off, but what winds up happening is the cop reaches in his pocket, pulls out a little baggie of cocaine, sticks it in the guy's wallet and closes it up and lays the wallet beside the guy. So then when the other police officers show up, he says, I'm detaining him for this. I haven't checked his wallet for an ID or anything like that. You want to do that? So the other officer goes through, picks it up, finds the baggie of cocaine, and he gets charged for that. But
I'm sorry to interject all these anecdotes, but I bought a city auction ex-police car, and I took it on a road trip, and I kept getting pulled over because people hated to see me driving around in a black and white police car with a spotlight and everything. So I got pulled over 6 times on this one road trip on suspicion of what they would never say.
Yeah.
But every time they tear my car apart because I've got long hair in the 80s and I'm driving a police car, so they have to tear my car apart looking for drugs. And every time they pull the back seat out, trying to find where somebody had stuffed drugs in the back seat, and they never found anything. But when I get back home, here's the funny thing: I go to put my back seat back in because the last cops, and I think this was in Mexico, not in the United States, but because I was foolish enough to go to Mexico in this condition. But I went to go put the back seat in, and something fell down. It was a medicine bottle, and I opened up the medicine bottle, and it had 5 vials in it. 3 were powder, and 2 were rock. And it was stuffed up under the the back of the seat, not the bottom of the seat. And I was amazed that on 6 strip searches, the police never found this.
You got lucky.
And of course, you would have been held accountable and screwed for that.
I bought an ex-police car. It was full of spent shell casings when I picked it up.
So you bought
Maybe
drugs
God was looking out for you, Aron.
Basically, you bought drugs from the cops then. That's what you're
That was
saying.
the funny thing. My car was not just full of drugs illicitly that I didn't know about. It was also full of bullet casings.
Wow.
Like, who the hell did I buy my car from?
You got some bullets, man. Like, they spared you from getting shot by the police, and then
How often is this cop that had the car before I bought it? How often was he discharging his firearm? Because I found 10 bullet casings under my mat for the floor mat under the gas pedal.
Don't
Who
they
did
go
you buy
through
it
all that
from?
before they sell it?
Yeah, who did you buy it from? They need to go to Auto Bell next time.
Yeah, it was an ex-California Highway Patrol car, and I bought it in Arizona. I don't know if that means anything.
Where?
So that's good. Drugs going got straight lines now too.
Yeah, that's true. And that brings up a point, because how often do you hear, I know in almost every video, the reason that the police engage is because they call it suspicious activity. And what's amazing to me is that and this is a good response, you hear the person ask, okay, officer, is suspicion a misdemeanor or felony? And so many times you hear them say misdemeanor, or one video I've seen said felony. So they obviously don't know their own laws. Correct.
Or
You're talking about the Ohio cop, the recent one that Ohio Guardian 2.0 or BLW TV put out, where their police chief said that suspicion is a felony or misdemeanor.
Right.
That is the most absurd thing. It really makes them look bad. It also makes their mayor look bad, because he was also part of that call as well. When I hear those kind of things, that's another reason why I believe that these auditors out there, the First Amendment auditors and cop watchers, are needed, because they help educate even their own police officers that they don't know the law. You'll be. I hate this general conception from people out there. I guess you would call them the keyboard warriors. They like to think that everybody on the internet is an attorney, and it's not true. There are some people out there that actually do take the time to read their laws in their area, and they understand it, and they exercise those out in public. And you'll be surprised. Nowadays, the average Joe probably knows more about their basic law than the police officers do.
So what do you recommend?
That's disturbing, because it doesn't matter that we as the populace, necessarily doesn't matter that we're not aware that you can record anywhere. It's when the cops come in to arrest you for recording. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I've seen videos of that too. I'm sure you have.
Sure.
And you've probably been involved in some where you've been arrested for recording the police, right?
Actually, it brings up a funny point. I've never been arrested for doing that. I've always, and in fact, I did an audit on my own police station, and it's like the question call that you had before, like the way you interact with an officer if they come up to you. I went into a police station and I saw some awesome, interesting, looking display cases with old police memorabilia from back in the 40s and the 50s, and I wanted to take some films. I noticed there was an officer there at the window, and I said, "How you doing, officer? I'm just here to take some photos of some of the display cases here. I'm not going to interfere in your duties or anything." And he says, "Oh, no problem. Go ahead and do that." It's all how you interact with that officer to begin with. There are going to be sometimes cops that come up to you and act like a total asshole towards you, and they're going to say, "What are you doing? Like, why are you here? Get out of here. This is not, you're not supposed to be here." Well, actually I am. I'm allowed to be here. This is public. There's ways to handle those kind of things. And I do see a lot of these auditors, they do handle themselves very well. And then there's some out there that don't. And I'm just going to come out and say it. A lot of my viewers are probably watching this right now too, and that a lot of people don't do that. There's one individual in particular. I'm not going to glorify his name because he's been caught doing some pretty terrible things. But one big thing I say you never do, and you guys can talk about this here in a second, never call the cops on yourself, ever. Not to get a reaction, because and I'm going to tell you, this is a kind of a big thing in our community, and we talk about it like through our own private forums and things of that sort. There are auditors out there that have been caught that call the police on themselves to get a reaction, and that's not what we're about. I don't. Right. If I hear about that, I don't associate with that individual any longer, because that's not what we're about.
That's
Your
ridiculous.
mic's muted.
You're muted, Aron.
Still muted.
Still muted.
But while he's figuring out his mute, let me ask you, because this is one of the contentions that we've had on the sensationalism aspect of what the First Amendment auditors do, because I do support the First Amendment auditors, because I do think the cops, one, should know the rules and regulations and laws. Two, I think that the public should exercise their freedoms, and if you don't, I think you do have a tendency to lose them. However, as you said, there's a couple fine lines here that need to be really kind of sussed out. One, the sensationalism aspect. These videos are going on YouTube. People are putting them out there for people to watch. Fine, great. I think that's spectacular. However, that does give the rise for the propensity to have an altercation, right? As you said, these people calling cops on themselves, which I think is just abhorrent. That destroys the whole point of a First Amendment audit, right? The second would be, what do you recommend when cops are able to lie to people? We all know that. Okay. But when they say things like, you are breaking the law, suspicion is a misdemeanor or a felony, which clearly it's not, in those cases, you do recommend always comply with the officer, right? You should never fight an officer. If they think you should be arrested, you get arrested, right? You never fight any of that stuff.
I always tell individuals, and I've preached this time and time again on my channel, and also a lot of other auditors, bigger name auditors out there know this. If you know you're going into a situation and the officer is becoming hard to deal with, and you know that it could go further and it can become one of those, get on the ground, stop resisting type of situations, then I would suggest using the most important right that you have, and that's the fifth. Let them do their investigation and just shut up, because they cannot do anything if you don't say anything.
Or extricate yourself from the situation if they allow you to, if you're not being detained.
Right. Okay. Exactly. Know your limits. I mean, I can't tell an auditor what to do. It's his decision or her decision what to do. But if you know, you're going to know inside your gut whether this officer is going to be the bad one or if it's going to be a good one. Some people have, like, look at Mexican Padilla. He pushes the envelope so hard. He'll start screaming. He
agitates. But do you think he got set up, though? I mean, I watched that particular video.
Honestly,
it was very clear. They told him, the secretary did tell him he was able to go in. There's a public area. Go ahead. Honestly,
I don't want to reveal too much of this because the attorneys have this right now, and I'm privy to a lot of inside information as far as Leon Valley and also the auditors. But I will tell you this: it does seem like a setup, and Leon Valley probably needs to answer why their employee decided to give permission. Why? That's all I'm going to say. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Was it a restricted area?
Yeah.
Or was the chief just not wanting back there? Like, is that the area that he went to a restricted area, or do you know?
That area particularly is for the public to go in when they have city meetings. A lot of offices are in there, as far as the city manager, the mayor. When they come in, they can, they have those offices there, but they're locked. When he was in there, you can clearly see those doors were completely locked. He was taking photos of pictures of the city officials and just getting a lay of what it looks like. It wasn't a horrible thing. The biggest issue that I had with that, regardless of the fact that he did, antagonize the police chief, he was given permission. There was no sign saying that you couldn't go in there. There was nothing that said that it was restricted. If they were restricted area, those doors should have been locked, period.
Yeah. Okay, but cannot permission be revoked? Let's say that it was a restricted area. There's two scenarios. There's restricted or not restricted. If it was restricted and the secretary gave permission, what she didn't have to give, or even if she did have permission to give permission, could that permission not be revoked? If the police chief said, you know what, I'm overriding her, I'm asking you to leave, at that point,
I agree.
He would be in the right, correct?
Well, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, if the police chief says, I'll give that to the chief. I mean, I'm not going to say that he's, perfect in everything he does, because I can tell you he's not.
Oh, he overreacted. Big time.
Yeah, he way overreacted. But when the chief did ask, hey, you need to leave, that moment, Mexican Padilla should have known that this guy's going to escalate without de-escalation. That's the moment I tell everybody, just know your part, know when it's time to go, because if you would have left, you still would have had a decent video. You would have had a reaction out of that police officer because he did something that was, kind of off the wall. You had permission and you would have gone. Mm-hmm. That's not the way it worked. Unfortunately, he paid the price for that.
What do you feel about Aron, I'm surprised that with you being in Texas, you haven't seen any of these, like, just out in public, because a lot of a lot of like Texas, I believe, is the ground zero for First Amendment audit. Wouldn't you say, Black Label?
More so Second Amendment audit more than anything else. They
But Second Amendment, but it's now starting to become more First Amendment and also Second Amendment because those guys are kind of like intertwined with each other now with OCT.
Right.
OCT is a very big organization out there. But when you compare like from California and Texas, there's always that that little rivalry that goes on there.
Yeah.
But all in all, we all have the same mission.
I wanted to
I'll
ask
tell you what I did see. I think both of the cities, I think it might have been the same city, but if it isn't, I think that both of the cities were in Texas. You had a guy walking down the street with an AK-47 strapped over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Right.
One police car pulls up and asks him, "What are you doing with that machine gun?" And the guy says, "I'm just exercising my rights, officer." And the guy says, "Okay, well, go about your day."
Right.
Black guy does exactly the same thing on what looked to me to be the exact same street. 5 police cars pull out, guns drawn, and that guy has to get down on the ground, face down, and his 7-month pregnant girlfriend had to get down, face down as well. And they didn't care about his exercising his rights. They confiscate his gun.
Right.
That's a good point. Because similar to that, and not so much with the I can the gun thing, it's not right for them to treat one or the other. But even something as simple as you go to I believe it was Texas Sheepdog. That's a guy, right? Texas Sheepdog.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he did a thing where he was at Costco, and I believe it was actually with Turner, and we're going to talk about Turner versus Driver here in a few minutes anyway. But the Turner is a black guy, and he, if you don't know, he enacted change because he was detained for a long period of time. He wound up suing for or not, did he sue for for monetary or just a?
That was monetary.
Okay, yeah, and the Louisiana the Fifth Circuit Supreme Court in Louisiana wound up hearing his case and voted in his favor, but they both went to Costco and they purchased, I believe, some milkshakes, and they both got a receipt for it. And Texas Sheepdog's like, I'm going to walk out and not show my receipt. I'm just going to refuse to do it. And because apparently I didn't know this. This was something I didn't know, but apparently that's legal. You don't have to show your receipt that you paid for something when you leave one of these stores.
That seems strange to me. Don't they have people posted these?
I'm going to correct you on this one though, because here's what I know about Costco and like Sam's Club and those big ones. Those are membership organizations. You have to pay to become a member there. Mm-hmm. If you go to a Walmart and you go past that greeter and you say, "I'm not going to show the receipt because I purchased it," that's absolutely fine. There are some, I guess, membership companies out there that do say that you do have to show your receipt, but Costco wasn't one of them.
Yeah, and can I also?
So I know what you're talking about. That
because I've been a part of stops, retail stops. I was a store manager and retail manager for many years, and I worked with LP very closely. They can ask you for a receipt if they stop you. However, if they stop you and they don't have a reason to, it's a bad stop, they call it. And bad stops go against the LP, and those people can be fired for bad stops. But if they think you've stolen, they more than they can ask you. You don't have to give it, but at that point, that's when they call the police, and they just let them take it from there. But they can ask, right? But that's a difference between somebody who has suspicion of stealing something other than like Costco, where you just buy the stuff and then you have to show a receipt. It depends on the building rules. They say, okay, this is our property. It's still our property until it leaves the building, kind of thing, right?
But the thing about this video was that Texas Sheepdog walked right past her, said he wasn't showing the receipt. There wasn't an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't an issue. When Turner, the black guy, went to do this, it was
and the same thing. I mean, do you remember John Crawford III? Do you remember that shooting? I mean, he was a 22-year-old African American guy who he was buying a BB gun. He was purchasing it in the store. Some customer saw him, thought there was a threat for some reason, lied about it later, actually said he was waving the gun around, which he recanted. But a couple cops came in, they killed him. They didn't even ask him. They didn't even ask him to put down the weapon. They came in, open fired.
Outrageous.
I complained once recently, or by recently I mean in the last couple of years, I complained that you can walk into a Walmart carrying an AK-47, not just on your back, but in your arms, in your hands, ready to use. And you can walk into a Walmart and shop that way. Mm-hmm. But if I walk in with a medieval battle axe, then I'm going to be in trouble, even if it's strapped to my back.
If you got leather sheath on it and stuff.
Yeah, they've actually since changed the law. I'm both I am both tickled and disgusted at this. They've since changed the law that I can now carry my battle axe anywhere. Just like I could a machine gun.
Are you shitting me?
That's probably got a badass, actually.
About Second Amendment auditors, and I hate to use this, and I know that this is just going to be the worst phrasing, but it fits in this instance. In this day and age, how do you feel about people who do these Second Amendment audits? Like the First Amendment audits, that's different. But when you have all of these mass shootings going on, and you have people that want to push that envelope and carry something like an assault rifle walking up and down the street, do you think that crosses a line?
Not in Texas.
No. Listen, I've a lot of my followers and a lot of the people I know personally that are the auditors and activists, they know how passionate I am about the Second Amendment. I even right now, right behind me, against the wall, I have my AR right by my door all the time, in case of a break-in, because that happens too often nowadays.
But would you go out in public with it and just walk around?
It's kind of common. It's kind of common in Texas, though, isn't it anymore?
Well, here's the funny thing. You can carry your weapon. You can now carry a weapon in Texas, concealed or open. You can have a license for either one. But when you bring it home, for whatever reason, you then have to disassemble it and put it in two different safes.
That seems odd. Yeah, look, I even said before, I think concealed carry is more dangerous. I had a concealed weapons permit as well. I carry 2 firearms. But the thing is, when you're in Texas, I'd much rather know what weapon you have. I'd rather like to know where it's at. It's on your holster. It's it's on your back. I'm not worried about the people that open carry. Those are not the ones that are committing the crimes. The ones that committed the crimes are the ones that have concealed guns because they usually carry the gun illegally.
Agreed. But I want to know from Black Label though, like his thoughts on. Not only like owning an assault rifle is not the issue or whatever, but do you think it's an issue when they try to get that reaction by walking up and down outside of a either on a public sidewalk or somewhere public with assault rifles strapped to themselves? I mean, like to me,
I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, even Texas Sheepdog and I did that when I went down to Texas the very first time, and when I met him, and we were working together. We knew what we were doing as far as. Like on purpose walking with that rifle on his back. And the biggest difference is that a lot of the individuals in Texas know automatically that you can get a gun in Texas. Texas is a great state to buy guns. It legit is. But a lot of people don't know that you can carry them everywhere. So what he does is he wants to educate the public to let them know that you can do this, and it's not a scary thing. You have these school shootings. It's unfortunate. My heart goes out to all those families and those individuals and the kids that had that happen. But honestly, it's like what would have happened if there was an individual or a teacher that in Texas, if this happened in Texas, which has happened before, we're armed, how fast that situation could be taken care of.
Yeah, I don't want teachers.
I don't think it's a good idea to arm teachers either. They're there to educate. They're not there to be police officers.
That's
we've actually gotten that argument.
Right.
We've actually gotten that argument with that if only the teachers had guns, and then obviously a Republican legislator said, well, maybe if the students had guns. Seriously.
What do you feel about that?
Issue them like a school uniform. Hey, here's your Glock.
No, I don't believe the kids. No, I mean they have to be responsible. Even right now, I'm teaching my son how to properly respect the rifle. I always teach him. I always say, and this was taught to me a long time ago. Never point that rifle to something you do not intend to destroy, ever.
Yeah.
And that's what I teach him. And every time he looks at it, he respects it. And one day when he's ready, I'm going to let him hold that, and we're going to go to the range, and I'm going to teach him the safeties, and so that he understands it.
I mentioned earlier a battle axe. The difference between a battle axe and a gun is that the battle axe only has the strength that you put behind it. It only has the commitment that you put into it. Whereas a gun will inadvertently always give 100% every time. Even if it wasn't intended.
And it's kind of hard to have accidental battle axe decapitations. I mean, you with a gun, accidental discharges are quite a common.
You can be as angry as you want to. If I could be infuriated at you and swing a battle axe at your head, and I can still pull that blow, or otherwise deflect it when I realize that, hey, my heart is not really into this. But a gun doesn't have that sensibility. A gun is always going to a gun in the hand of a 3-year-old child is going to do every bit as much damage as it would in the hands of Steven Seagal or any other 80s.
That's why it's called the great
hero.
equalizer, though, right?
Yeah.
That's why guns are an equalizer.
This is a little bit off topic, but Blacklab, what are your thoughts on more restrictions on guns? Do you think that we as a country need to kind of look at our gun laws now, or do you think they're okay, or what's your thoughts?
Honestly think the gun laws that we have are absolutely fine the way it is. I think it has to do with individuals who might have a mental issue.
Well, now you're going against the president.
No, I know, and I don't support him 100%. There are some things about him I like, and there's some things that I don't. That happens, with any president that we have. But I think that the gun laws and the things that we have now are perfectly fine the way it is. It's just, I think it's the education of that needs to be taught to the young kids nowadays. A lot of kids, they watch too many movies and they think that it's cool, and that's not what it's about. A lot of these kids now.
I'm sorry. I spent a lot of my time in Arizona, and we always had an open carry law. Like, since Wyatt Earp, we've always had an open carry law in Arizona. And so if you automatically have this right to carry a firearm out in the open. You don't have to keep it. As a matter of fact, it was illegal to conceal it. Mm-hmm. You had to have it where everyone could see it. You still couldn't wear it into a government building because the government is smarter than that. And you still can't wear it into a bar because obvious reasons. But you could wear it pretty much anywhere else. The thing is, if you have not just a felony conviction, but if you have multiple, I think it was 3 domestic violence calls, you would lose your right to carry that firearm. Mm-hmm. And if you were caught with the firearm, you would be arrested on the crime of intent to commit a felony, just for having it.
That's actually not a bad idea, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need tougher legislation, though. I agree with Copwatch that I think the key is education. I'm a firm advocate. If you own a firearm, you better know everything there is to know about that weapon. You better know how to take care of it, and better damn well know the 5 rules of safety, right?
When my dad
education
died,
is key.
When my dad died, he left an arsenal. I mean, literally an arsenal to his 3 sons. But I could, because of the executor of the will, I couldn't collect any of the handguns until I passed something equivalent to a driver's license test. Yes. I had to be able to show that I had responsibility to own any of these handguns. And while I never bothered to take it because honestly it wasn't that big a deal to me that I have handguns, and not even his. I got his shotguns. Those were the things that I actually liked that he had. But I hope you understand what I mean. I mean, I would like to see legislation have something to do with the training.
That's fine.
The use of firearms. So you're licensed to have this.
Yeah,
that's
part of the education.
As far as
I don't
gun
mind
legislation. I do not agree with my European friends who obviously have a very different take on this.
Right.
Who say that this should all be automatically banned. Matter of fact, one of the things that made me proud to be an American was when I was a teenager. I remember being in Las Vegas, Nevada, and somebody had a half track. You guys know what a half track is? The front tires are regular tires, but the back are tank treads.
Right.
And it had a dual barrel 20 millimeter mounted machine gun on the back of it, and it had a for sale sign in the window.
That's awesome.
I'm so glad to live in America where I can buy something ridiculously overkill like this.
The thing is, though, like I don't mind even the what you were just talking about, the rule because we had Scientist Mail on a couple weeks ago, and we had the Second Amendment debate where we had one side saying we needed stricter gun laws, one side saying we didn't. But she laid out a statistic, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is, but there was a certain percentage of, I think it was like 80%, wasn't it, Steve, that of females that get killed with guns in their house in domestic violence situations.
I love Mel, but I don't know if she really had the data to back up a lot of her stats in that particular.
Well, I think she did. She quoted that. She quoted that statistic. I remember that. But if you have 3 domestic calls out, I don't think it's that outrageous to say that you can't have a firearm on that, because if it's going to be used anywhere, it's going to be used in a house where you get something like that happen.
That is the sad fact of the matter. I mean, most of the time, the guns that we buy to protect our family are the guns that end up killing our family.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't mind people losing their rights over certain things. I mean, a right is a social contract you have with the state and the government, and those things are not inalienable. I mean, if you commit a felony, you lose the right to vote. It's not something that...
I'm glad you put it that way, because the people I argue with all day, every day, tell me that rights are given by God.
Bullshit.
Which makes me confused. Is it why is Arabic women didn't have the right to vote?
No,
or drive?
A right is a social contract. You're saying that I'm going to abide by certain conditions to have this right, and the right to have a firearm is that you're going to abide by the proper use of it, and you can lose those things. It's like, again, the right to vote is given up when you become a felony. There are rights that can be lost.
So I've said as a kid. Ever since I was a child, I said, that rights are established by the government. They are granted or removed by your, government.
Of course.
What I find interesting? Here's what I find interesting. And then there was one of the individuals in the chat, but it looks like Denise Lynn made a very good point. Illinois has very strict gun laws, but yet they have the most shootings across the United States. If you tally them up, there's a lot of people dying in Chicago, and they have
60 people died in a weekend in Chicago.
Right.
That's because Indiana doesn't have strict gun laws, and they're 50 miles away.
I mean, in Texas, if you go out and commit a home robbery, you're literally taking your life in your hands, because I guarantee it, the odds are much higher than it is in many other places that you're going to get your ass blown away. Correct?
Oh, sure, sure. But let me. That's a good segue into the losing your rights. Black Label, when you said earlier that you did an audit on your own police station, and oftentimes I wonder, because this is the thing that you don't see on these videos. What's the aftermath like? Is there any type of retaliation from these police stations or individual officers themselves, or do they stalk you out waiting for you to leave the house and all this other kind of stuff?
I've never seen black suburban vehicles ever parked outside my house at all, but it could happen.
They've got it better at hiding, actually. By the way, just to let you know, they're there.
Yeah,
they just got it better at hiding. They do.
Yeah. No, when I did my audit with that, the individual seemed interested to tell me the history of the department and that sort of thing. So when you have a good interaction, I don't see that them coming and following you because you seem strange or weird. I don't think that's what it is. I think what happens is that when you run into those cops that have these big egos and they just want to, I don't know, make an arrest for themselves or do something. It could possibly be that they do follow you around to see if you would end up somehow violating whatever law that they can get you on. Denise Lynn is a good example for because I know she's an activist as well, and she has done this stuff a lot in Chicago, where she would do an audit at the police station at night. And when she starts to walk away, they'll start following her in a vehicle, and she'll stay online to make sure that she's safe and that they don't. But I do see that, and I do see sometimes retaliation does happen as far as coming onto your channels and start creating havoc and creating I don't know, the troll type responses saying you guys are idiots, or it just creates all kinds of division.
Well, like you said,
I would like to think that people are smart enough now, or that they've been watching the political situation over the last couple of years in this country, and know that you don't just stick a cattle prod in somebody's ass and not expect some kind of a retaliation.
Yeah, you're dealing with people that have egos. Not all of them. I mean, obviously, not all cops are the same. And I really am pro police. I mean, who are you going to call when you're in danger? You're not going to call the local crackhead, right?
Well, here's the problem with that, though. There's a problem with what I'm saying. I'm just going to say this. I hear that a lot with cops. When they come into the forums and they say, who are you going to call when you need help, or who's that? The response time that it takes for a police officer to get to your house if there's a home invasion, it's too long.
No, it depends when you're at. I got to tell you, I mean, I've had the sheriffs over here about 7 times because of a psychopathic roommate, and they were sometimes here within 5 minutes. So it really depends, and it depends on the what's happening. But still, you're still going to go to cops, right? I mean, cops are still there.
No, I got to agree with Black Label here. I learned as a young man, and maybe you've already gotten the idea that my youth was somewhat jaded in this, but
It an action movie.
I do not involve government agencies in my personal affairs if it can be at all avoided.
Oh, I agree with that. No, I'm not disagreeing with you there. I think that if you can avoid calling the police at all costs, people call the police for any stupid thing anymore, right? And I think
not me, man.
And it wasn't us calling the police. It was our psycho roommate. He once called the police.
I'd rather bury the body in the backyard than have to explain it to it.
Aaron, my psycho ex-roommate once called the police because we used his restroom, which, by the way, wasn't his restroom. That's why he called the police. That's how mentally nuts he was. So
I agree that you have to call the police for specific situations. I'm going to give you one example where I actually had to tell my own neighbors not to do this. The neighbors were having a party out in their backyard. They were having a cookout or a bonfire. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. We're allowed to do those type of things because we live in the country. Okay, so we have good neighbors out here. Well, apparently one of the neighbors who's new, who just moved in recently, didn't like the fact that the smoke was coming across the street into their house in that area, and they started smelling it, and they were going to call the cops on them. Well, unfortunately, the problem with that is the person that they were going to call the cops on was a black family. Okay, and I get really freaked out over this because I've seen it too many times that black people get killed and shot for misunderstandings and things of that sort. So I did go on the forum when they made this complaint on our group forum, and I said, "Don't call the cops. Don't do that. Don't just walk over, knock on their door, and ask them, hey, can you please put out the fire so that way the smoke doesn't come into my house?" And then they did respond, you know what, you're absolutely right, because I did let them know that sometimes there might be a misunderstanding. You send a cop down there, and it might end up becoming a bigger situation than what you're really trying to have them take care of.
That's true.
But is that a situation
that's a scary thing
where the police could even do anything? Because if it's you can't help the direction of the wind. Like if smoke is coming out of a cookout or whatever, how in the world would you be able to tell somebody?
Some people, like I said, they call the police over any stupid things, right? I mean, one lady was calling the police because people were having a cookout in the park.
I'm trying to imagine calling the police on my neighbors because I can smell their barbecue. What the hell is wrong with me?
Exactly.
There are a lot of people out there that are like that.
Yeah.
Why am I not bringing over a rack of pork ribs to help?
Yeah,
you said
they get all better, man. Bring me some pork ribs.
I told him, I was like, why don't you go over? And better yet, I bet you $1 million that if they were to go over and they knock on your door and you say, hey, can you please put out the fire? It's kind of like, the smoke is going into my house. I'm having a problem with that. What if they were to invite them, say, hey, I'm sorry, you want to come on over and have some burgers? We're having a good time.
Totally cool.
Be good neighbors. Don't call them because, look what happened to the individual that was it in Arizona, the gentleman that got shot by the cop in the middle of the hallway of the hotel.
That was an execution.
That was execution, all because a bystander called the cops because they thought something was wrong, right? And they found out that it was not later on. They made a mistake.
They thought they were waving a BB gun or something. Was that the one that he was told to put his arms?
It was a dart gun. Yeah,
it's a dart gun. Yeah, and so the poor kid was scared shitless. Clearly, and they murdered him because he was trying to pull up his pants. That was ridiculous.
There's a video online that I saw the other day that it's just not only is it heartbreaking, but it really pissed me off. And I'm not saying this is a way of flinging shit at cops or whatever, because I don't mean to do that. But McDonald's in Myrtle Beach, there was a guy that have you seen this video? I'm getting ready to say.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the female cop.
Yeah. In Myrtle Beach, this guy bought this homeless man some food, brought him in McDonald's, sat him down, got him a meal. And McDonald's, for whatever reason, and they should be ashamed of this too, but they called the police. The police got there and would not let the man eat that meal and kicked them out of that restaurant. And I just can't understand that. I cannot understand if he legally bought that, how the police have the right to tell him to get out after it's been purchased.
There's the same thing with the Starbucks where the person said, I would like to buy something for that gentleman outside. And they said, no, we can't let you buy food for the homeless. Now, the corporation actually they stepped in and said, you know what, we don't train our people to say that. That was the wrong thing to do. But still, I mean, think of the publicity that must be like for a company that says, we're going to deny giving homeless people food.
But the police tell it, like, where does the police?
I don't know how the police think that they have a right to do that either. I don't even know what
what
statute what law would they be upholding by that? Hey, you can't eat even though it's been legally purchased.
Right, but they did. She would not let him eat.
And they removed the individual out of the restaurant, but I believe McDonald's response was that they don't do the training like that. They don't tell people to do that. I think their excuse was about the health hazards of somebody who's homeless who comes in. They can bring something into their restaurant, which is
that's
complete
crap.
bullshit.
It's no worse than the burgers they.
Yeah, have you seen the people that eat at Walmart? Come on, they're not exactly the most hygienic people to begin with, half of them.
That man better be eating McDonald's for free for the rest of his life.
You know what? They have a gold card. McDonald's actually has a gold card. You get 2 free meals a week for like 50 years. That's what they need to give them.
That's not enough.
I know it. And by the way, they only have like 1 or 2 of them. Although they're a multi-trillion-dollar company, they only have a couple gold cards that they're offering for various reasons. That's how cheap they are. Come on.
Are you guys familiar with Tom Zebra?
No.
Okay, Tom Zebra is a cop watcher in California, and he's very well known in that area for doing police work, police investigations and going up on traffic stops and things of that sort. But he comes to mind because when he helps the homeless, he actually takes money out of his own pocket to help the homeless by bringing them hot dogs and bottled water and things of that sort. And there's other activists that actually worked with him that actually did that. So I can see that, helping other individuals that are unfortunate is kind of like, it's kind of needed, especially now, because you're going to start seeing more and more people like that. Unfortunately.
Well, let me ask you: do these cops even? I mean, they all know they're being filmed. So when that female cop did what she did, she knew that she was being filmed. I'm sure, right? Do they even think to themselves? Do they think, how am I being looked at from the masses, the public out there, seeing their actions? I think a lot of people don't have this sense, like a lot of people, more normal people have, to be mortified by what you do, right? We do get embarrassed. If you can't get embarrassed because you do stupid shit, something's wrong. And I think that some of those people lack maybe that kind of stuff.
Speaking of which, I got to bring up another anecdote just for a moment. Having a group of people over to my 1-bedroom apartment for a sort of a small, get-together, which of course means loud, party and all that. Suddenly I have somebody pounding at my door. I go to answer the door, and there was a female cop, an oh my God, gorgeous female cop. And I remember standing there stunned at how beautiful she was. I'm like, whatever it was, I did it.
Strip search me now.
Nice.
And she had a giant black partner that was hiding behind the side of the door. He turns around and I'm like, okay, you were completely unnecessary.
Bring him to.
She had already utterly disarmed me.
What you were telling us a story, Black Label, on before we went live about a certain rapper that will stop. Do you want to go through that story with us?
Yeah. If anybody's familiar with the Wu-Tang Clan, there's a gentleman by the name of Marquise Johnson, goes by the name of Andre Rocks, with a group called the Killer Bees, which is an associated act with Wu-Tang Clan, and him and his father and uncle were driving home from, I don't remember what state it was, but they were bringing home a motorcycle, and apparently the trailer had a license plate that was tucked under that was halfway visible. Well, in Florida, they pulled him over. The police officers pulled him over for that reason, so they can let them know that, hey, your license plate's not visible, and probably would have been just a normal traffic stop and maybe a warning or something like that. But that's not the case. What they ended up doing was they pulled these guys over, and they didn't go to the driver. They went straight to the passenger. And I don't know if it's by luck or maybe if they saw who was in the vehicle or whatnot, but they went over by the passenger and they immediately asked Andre for his ID rather than the driver's ID. Well, he declined. He told him that, he's not driving the vehicle. He's not the subject of the investigation of the stop, so he doesn't have to give him his ID. There's no suspicion of a crime that the passenger did to be able to give up his ID, and they just escalated the issue from there. I believe Florida statutes, I don't remember the exact PC code. I think it's 905.151, and I think some of your viewers probably correct me on that. Specifically states that you can only show your identification if you are, about ready to commit a crime, have committed, or, or suspected of committing a crime.
Wait. I want to understand that. You can only show your ID if you're about to commit a crime.
No, you're only obligated to, I think he means.
Right. Yeah. It's like if you're suspected of something and they can articulate that suspicion, then you would have to give.
Well, they can ask though. I mean, the police can ask you for identification any time, but you
absolutely.
But you are within your right to say, I don't feel like I need to give you my ID unless I'm under suspicion of committing a crime. And if they can't articulate a crime, then they keep asking you. But 9 times out of 10, they do eventually give up and go away, or they fabricate some kind of charge. And that's the dangerous thing, right? When they fabricate a charge, like did the guy from the Wu-Tang Clan, I don't remember his name, but did they get him on any kind of charges? Because that's especially dangerous because they try to trump up charges for people like that don't show their ID, even though you're in your constitutional right not to show your ID because you're not driving the vehicle and you're not part of any any kind of ongoing crime when they need to check the other licenses in the car, right?
Well, if you guys take a chance and watch that video, you're going to see what the officer says. I believe, and don't quote me on this because I'm bad at memory when it comes to like what I just posted, but what the cop did say was, if you don't show me your ID, I'm going to charge you with disorderly conduct. How can you charge somebody with disorderly without them doing something? Like he's almost coming out and saying, "Hey, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to just make up a charge against you."
That's not like what they're doing. That is what they're doing. They're making shit up. They are trumping it up.
Several do that though.
This prompts another question for me. We have live video, like Facebook Live. Automatically uploads regardless whether you want to. You save the recording or not. Right.
Right.
How? What is it? Is there a legal precedent on this? I mean, when you're recording the cop, and they tell you that they're gonna do this to you.
Well, they're the ones that the burden of that's going to happen on the police officer. They're the ones that are showing that they're lying, and a lot of people have gotten off on cases because the cops did actually get shown that they were lying.
Yeah.
Like that one gentleman that had the mistaken identity where they tased him. That cop got suspended, I believe, because he did lie on on his report, because he said multiple times in the video that he asked for that ID 3-4 times and he didn't respond, when in his report he didn't say that. He kind of hid that fact, but when the video came out, it's conflicting on both sides. So there's an issue there.
Okay,
but with Andre,
several of them
got. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say several
Andre,
people.
Sorry, we got a little bit of delay.
Yeah, we got a little bit of Cop, go ahead. And what about Andre? Cop?
Andre, what happened with him, he ended up getting charged with disorderly, I believe, because of failure to ID. Now, I don't know what's going to happen from here on out. I mean, he's been in contact with me, every now and then. I told him I gave him a couple of videos on other situations like this, and he's looking into it. He's got attorneys and this and that, but he's going to give me an update soon. But as far as I know, they did charge him. And
okay, let me
it
ask
is
you,
insane.
though.
When you see the video, it's nowhere near. He was very respectful for the officer. He kept his cool. There was no, crazy situation. He even said, "Officer, is it okay if I go into my wallet and pull my lawyer's card out? I don't want to get shot or anything like that." He did all those things that anybody would do. But still, they had. Oh. I think they had it in their mind they were going to arrest him anyway.
Okay, well,
let me, Aron, to answer your question though. They a lot of them do stream live. Most of the audience that you see on YouTube are actually them streaming it in real time. They're not recorded. So many of them do that feature.
But I gotta ask. Look at first look at this stream. Very good. Nobody caught it. So the obviously that people will be kicked. The charges will be kicked out. Right. The judge will say, look, the officer's lying. There's no reason why this person should be found guilty, blah, blah, blah. That's fine, right? But is there any ramifications for the cops that have actually done these things where they've known they planted evidence, they've known they've lied to a degree where it could be considered to be a false arrest? Is there anything that besides maybe just a reprimand, administrative duty, which is basically a vacation, is there any kind of suspensions or criminal prosecution that could be levied against the officers for doing these types of tactics?
Very rare do you ever see a police officer get convicted of a crime like that.
Is that a problem, though, that they're not?
It's a huge problem. It's a very huge problem. I mean, look at what happened with Leon Valley. We're going to go right back to that, where the chief of police, actually violated blatantly violated the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, violated some individuals' Second Amendment right to carry their weapons. It's a big
Is that because he
lawsuit.
called it? Is that because he called it a press conference? Like, look, the police can lie and say, hey, look, you've won a lottery. Come on down and we'll give you the prize. They can do stuff like that. But he called it a press conference, and that makes a whole different ball game, right? Because now he's saying we want journalists to come here, and we're going to violate your freedom of speech once you're here.
Nah, I still think he can lie about that.
I don't know. I have there been precedents on that before?
I'm sure that there's been cases where I don't know about specifically a press conference.
But that's what I think is different. They called it a press conference.
They called it a press conference when they pulled it out. The chief said we're going to do a press conference in about 5 minutes. If everybody can come up to the back door, like right where the city officials go in for their meetings, and then everybody did. And arrested them all. They all came out like drones of little flies. It just all came out as like 20
how much
of them.
Backlash has he
He
gotten
knows that's going to be on video.
I would have
right?
been there if I'd been in the room and heard that. I would have shown up, even if I didn't have a professional camera. I would have shown up for, okay, this is media. I'm going to record this.
And you'd have got arrested.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
is
'cause
that not scary though that they're going to arrest you just for showing up when you haven't broken any laws?
They arrested one individual who wasn't part of that situation directly. He went there just to film as an independent journalist for his own blog and his own situation. His name is Russell. We call him Sasquatch because he's a big guy. And they even arrested or seized his camera and his stuff. And that's completely wrong. They violated his rights.
If Fox News would have shown up, would they have arrested the news crew, the news correspondents?
I would say yes, because based on what they did there, they would have. The reason why I say that is the accusation that they said was every single one of those individuals who were not directly involved were a witness, and their cameras would have been seized.
And what do you think would have happened had that been the case?
Oh, we would have seen this on CNN.
And don't you think that would have been awesome?
They had to think about this.
They had to pay to get their own stuff back. They had to pay $25 to go and retrieve their phones, their guns. They had to pay.
But why is it a double standard? Look, if it would have been newsworthy if it was Fox that got arrested, why isn't it newsworthy that these people that journalism is a loose thing. Exactly. Thank you.
I went to Standing Rock. And there was no CNN, there was no NBC or anybody, there was no major, networks at Standing Rock. So there were a couple of online, like Democracy Now! Kind of things. And the reporter for Democracy Now! Was arrested for reporting the news. Fuck the First Amendment. She was threatened with a 45-year felony for reporting the news. Now, fortunately, she beat that case, and so did the other journalist who was arrested under similar charges. This is freedom of the press. They're threatening to put them in prison for 45 fucking years.
Oh, what charge?
For reporting the news. Reporting the news on a story that the United States collectively did not want reported.
Yeah, they did not want that out. That was an embarrassment.
Oh, well, people aren't smart sometimes, I don't think. They don't, when they do shit like that, charging somebody and making them or threatening them with 45 years, they don't think things through. They don't think how it's going to be. Because I don't see anybody siding with the government on that, ever.
But isn't this...
Well, they're hoping that person is going to be, is only selfishly thinking about their own livelihood.
Yeah, they're going to capitulate and concede, right. But don't you think that this is reasons why we need these kind of audits? I mean, it's the fact that...
No, I do. This is why I said I'm torn. I'm torn because I don't like people antagonizing the police.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't know what kind of negative... We don't know what kind of negative repercussions can come from that.
I agree.
But at the same time, yes, the public needs to be alerted, and the First Amendment, or excuse me, the Constitution in general, does not defend itself.
Right. I think if Black Label, this might be a good time, like for you to, if there's anybody that's wanting to either start doing this or for those that are doing it, what would be your advice to the steps they should take? Because I think you touched on it earlier, and if everybody followed what you alluded to, where you don't try to create a situation where there doesn't need to be one. So if you are approached, there are certain things you do say and certain things you don't say. But can you kind of give us what your advice would be for anybody that's thinking about doing this?
I had one person ask me that same exact question in Facebook. He's a follower. He's a big fan from other cop watchers and auditors. And the best answer I can give you is, number one, is to first always look into the laws in your area, especially your local ordinances, because that could be a big issue. Also, check your city and state property lines and things of that sort, so you know what is property is public and what's private. That's also a big savior. And you'll see News Now Houston do that a lot, where he checks the boundary lines online for that particular city before he goes what he does, and he does that religiously because he doesn't want to get jammed up. Know the laws, know what you're doing, and know the moment when you can't go any further, because if you continue pressing your luck, you might end up, it might end backfiring against you. Never go alone. Number one, especially when you're new, because if for some reason you go by yourself and you think you know it all and you don't, you get arrested, that story will never get out. They can delete the footage. They could remove the live feed off of YouTube, unfortunately. I've seen this happen before. Somebody's live feed recently got deleted off their page, and it just disappeared. Nobody knows why. That's because they were arrested and they had access to the video. Can it be recovered? I don't know. But always have a backup. Now, you probably noticed that when in the very beginning, when you said that you were watching News Now Houston, he was kind of hanging around with the Batusai. We call him Batman, Mr. Turner. The News Now Houston backed Turner up on those cases. And one particular case where they actually saw the police officers going into his vehicle without a warrant, they caught that on video because you had a backup that was always there. So never go alone. Never go alone, because you need to have that story come out. And really, the next best thing I could say is also look at other auditors and other cop watchers out there and see how they do it, and kind of find your style. Because I'm going to say this: there's auditors out there, and we had this talk before the show, that there are baiters out there that I don't condone. I don't condone where you're trying to get a reaction. I'd rather have it come naturally, and you just need to learn how to speak to another officer or another government official. I always was taught by my father, and he's passed away, and he would understand this. If you respect another individual, they're going to respect you back. And somebody said it was social engineering. Honestly, you just be nice with everybody you deal with, and I'm sure you're going to get the same in return. They'll respect you. But if they don't, then at least you got it on film that they're disrespecting you. You're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Which ones would you say follow? Like if when you said to look at other auditors, which ones would you recommend people look for?
There's a slew of them. I would, obviously we would say Philip Turner, the Batusai. He's kind of like one of he has case law. That's
tell me about that
for him.
That's a good point. Tell everybody about
Philip V. Driver. It's a precedent case that allows you to film the police in Texas, and also, in that particular district. It's not illegal to film cops. And I wish there was, that kind of case law all across the land, that it would make it an actual, law itself, that it's okay. And in most, if it's not available, then you can still do it, as long as you're not interfering with the officer's duties. But generally you can. The auditors, I would have to say, is obviously the Batusai, the Philip Turner. News Now Houston's very calm, collective, and very good at what he does. Texas Sheepdog is great when it comes to the Second Amendment, and he's definitely a rabid dog when he needs to be, but he's the most kindest, gentle guy I've ever seen. We also have S.A. Ecstasy Perez, which is also another great auditor and cop watcher. Tom Zebra for cop watching itself, where he goes to specific accidents and, on-scene type situations. Laura Shark. There's so many. There's so many good ones. James Freeman is also a great one. He's more on the courtroom side of things than anything. Bal, I don't know if you're familiar with Clash of Bal. That's another big issue. Yeah, he's still locked up. They actually put up another bond for him, and unfortunately, they gave him the same conditions again. He cannot film, he cannot stream, he cannot do anything if he is to be released. Outrageous. So he declined it. He's staying in jail for all of us.
And how many cases is James working on right now that he's involved with that have
like 3 or 4
levied charges against him?
The ones that I know of are about 3 to 4. The ones that I don't know of, I have no idea. So I know he's dealing with a lot.
News Now Houston is my favorite. He's
I like
my
News Now
favorite one
too. But you know, I watch a sensationalized one just as much as one that a cop did really well, right? I mean, when I see a cop did really well in the audit, he's very talkative and informative. I'm just engaged. So I don't know why people try to make these things some kind of sensationalized, aggressive approach with these officers, because you know what? Yeah, they're interesting. But you know what? I'd rather see an officer that was really cool go, yeah, dude, that guy was righteous. You know?
There's people want to see the crazy.
I get that.
One particular auditor by the name of Pink Camera Magic, she said it best on her stream, that there are too many new auditors that believe that they're YouTube stars versus activists. And that's the thing that we look out for. I will tell you this, and I'm engaged with activities with News Out Houston and those guys in Texas, and we have a private chat that we have all the time, and we know who those characters are, and we know who not to work with. There's individuals out there that'll call the cops on themselves, and those are individuals we never work with.
That's totally uncalled for and unjustified, and just it goes against everything that I would think that an auditor was trying to accomplish.
It makes us all look bad, because when you go to a next particular audit and you try to genuinely have a good interaction, and let me just say this for everybody watching, a good interaction is no contact, honestly, and we would still report those and still show those. At least they came up and they respected the Constitution, they respected your rights, and that would still show up. I firmly believe that if you show the world that there are good cops out there that has respected it, it could make some big changes. It could.
Sure.
I agree.
But if you continue to put out videos of bad cops doing bad things, yes, everybody's going to love it because they love drama. They love that stuff. But those are the kind of individuals that we have to now separate ourselves from, because all they're doing is for the views. That's all it is. It's not about views. It's not about money for me, and not about money or views for anybody else. It's about 110,000 people that may have subscribed to this channel that is now getting the word out of what's going on in the country. That's how I look at it.
Real quickly, Aron, did you have anything else that you wanted to? We're going to ask a couple questions from the audience, but
no, I think we should go to the audience. I've already expressed everything that I needed to throw in.
Okay. Steve, are these super chats you sent me, or
those are questions?
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Logic Beat Speculation says, what is that? Who would win in a headbutt contest, a buffalo or a rhino?
Seriously?
Really?
It's a question.
Okay. All right. Dr. Griffith. She is a favorite on this show. She's on here all the time. She says, what can a minority person do if they are interacting with police and they want to de-escalate the situation? Good question.
I would say is invoke your fifth. If they de-escalate, if they don't say anything, then there's really nothing for them to do. I think that's the. Oh boy, I hear an echo.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. I think if the biggest thing for a cop is when they get annoyed when you don't say anything, and they're just going to make themselves look like a fool if you just stay quiet. And
the less is more, right? Don't antagonize them. Don't incriminate yourself. Just say, you know what? I plead the fifth. I'm just taking the fifth. I'm not saying anything. You do what you got to do.
Right. Do what you got to do. That's what I would say, because then, as long as it's being recorded, they're the ones that can't say, well, he acted out of control, or he did this, or he did that. And it's going to be in your favor.
Nothing can be misinterpreted when you're not even taking any action or saying anything, correct?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
And this one says, would you be interested in coming back to speak with a cop?
Oh, absolutely. I've talked with cops on my live show as far as when they call in, but these are retirees. But if there was a cop that would like to do that, I welcome them to come onto the show, or even onto your show. We can do this again. I've even asked. There's a gentleman by that's running for sheriff in Cook County right now for Chicago. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was planning on coming onto the show. But then I had a little bit of an issue with what he was doing, and there was a little bit more controversy, and I didn't want to do something that didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk to a police officer to kind of get their idea. But the only problem is, you got to worry about the backlash that officer might get from his brothers or his sisters of that department.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I think we've only just barely touched the surface of this. I mean, there's so much more to go into a lot of this stuff. This was very superficial to give the audience kind of an overview, especially if they've never seen any types of these videos. And I highly recommend go watch them, go check them out. If you haven't ever heard of First Amendment auditing or Second Amendment stuff, go look at these things. They are worth watching.
The next question is for Aron. Aron, when are we going to see part 2 of Kent Hovind v. Aron?
Well, that depends entirely on my my opponent.
Wow.
That's how you really feel about Kent. You're so subtle sometimes, Aron. But Kent's good. You ran him off.
Some people can learn from having been incarcerated for 10 years for fraud, and some people can't learn from that.
That's all he knows. Seriously, it's all he knows.
There's a follow-up. When is the next debate we're going to see you in?
Damned if I know. No one will schedule me for a debate.
We're going to have to figure something out, because I don't know why people are so... they don't want to
actually
debate.
Joe called him out. Remember that, Steve? When we did that show, and Joe in the middle of it goes, I want to debate Aron Ra, and I want to debate him as soon as possible. And I just stopped and said, no, you don't. No, this is the guy that...
Was that before or after? Was that before or after that he wanted to debate Dr. Mays?
Oh, that was before.
Okay.
I've been wanting to get into the debate circuit for a long time, and unfortunately, I didn't strategically plan this very well. The first time I was scheduled to do a live debate with anybody, it was somebody that I knew I'm gonna win this debate no matter what. However, I wanted, because my opponent was so weak, but I wanted more serious opponents to consider me later on. So I thought I would be a really objectionable, and so that these people would think that they could predict how I was going to be. So I steamrolled the guy that I debated the first time. Mm-hmm. And what happened as a result is that I never got invited to debate it again.
That's what I'm saying. I think your number one, your breadth of knowledge in these situations, and two, the I don't want to say aggression, but like a pit bull. You know, when they latch on, they don't let go. You know, you got to pry them off. I think that's what you get in these with. At least with Kent, I mean, you would not let him step away from that first question.
Nor should he. That was the whole point of the debate. Why would he let him walk away from that? Because everybody else has let him, right?
I've never seen it, and you guys are really turning me on to that.
We like
I'm gonna have to go back.
Not seen it? Oh no!
Oh,
it's.
I know that we talked about it prior to the show, but it's like, you know, I'm fascinated by this now. I want to watch it.
It's what my conservative grandmother would refer to as a clusterfuck.
It was fantastic.
Big time.
It's literally one of the greatest videos, not just because I'm biased because it's our show, but it's literally one of the greatest videos on the internet. Just to watch, because Kent, I don't know if you know who Kent Hovind is, but he has this way about him. You can watch a debate with him in 1980, and then a debate in 2013, and it's the same the same stuff.
Except that he adds a Green Mile every now and then, and Fighting Dory or something. I don't know.
like lines. And what Aron did was that he's used to sidestepping questions and giving you a spiel. And Aron asked him one question at the beginning of the debate and would not let him move off that one question until he answered it. And for an hour and a half,
which you never did,
flailed around and tried everything he could to get out of answering that question, but he couldn't. And it was just fantastic to watch. It was great. It was like Jerry Springer meets Intelligence Squared debates.
So this is the guy that just doesn't want to be wrong.
Well,
Kent.
Do you know who Kent is? I mean, have you heard Kent?
No, I've never heard of him before, but it sounds like
you are so blessed.
Yeah, we've dealt with Kent for a very long time. We've hosted many debates with him, so Aron's just one of the later ones.
He was famous back in the day. He had Dinosaur Adventureland down in Florida.
He was really famous once upon a time.
He was one of the most well-known creationists. Matter of fact, before Ken Ham, he was probably the leading creationist out there.
Right. Then he went to prison for structuring.
Tax evasion, structuring, 58 felony counts.
That's a polite way to put it.
That was
58 felony counts, but according to his people, he did nothing wrong.
Of course he did.
I'm sorry, if you're convicted of one felony, might have been an error. 58 counts of felony, something's not.
I'll send you a link, though, Black Label, and you can watch it and tell me what you think. But it's literally glorious. You'll enjoy it. Get you a beer and a joint and roll up and watch it, and you'll be set. Fantastic. So that's all that I have on mine, Steve. I know you have some things.
We just have a couple super chats. By the way, I do want to thank Kent Hovind CPA for another $1. Thank you, Kent Hovind CPA. Best troll name ever.
You're getting donations.
It's a troll. It's a troll account, and I love it. Kent Hovind CPA. He gives us $1 for every show he likes. He has for quite some time now, and it's awesome.
Glorious.
I really enjoy that. It's like we get $1, we have a good show. So thank you, Kent Hovind CPA. Don't stop doing that. We appreciate it. I think he gave us $2 once. It was a really good show. I don't remember which one it was. Mr. Cook for $5. I've been in the Army 18 years and don't trust my soldiers with weapons. No fucking way I trust civilians. See, I disagree. Look it. I'm ex-military.
Look it.
That's my second one.
There's a good point. Steve McRae is ex-military. What does that tell you about the value of our military service?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, I had every branch trying to recruit me. Like literally, I had the Air Force, the Army, the Marine. Everyone was trying to recruit me. Don't know why I went Navy.
I want to clarify what I just said. My daughter is in the service right now, and the service has made it. Well, she was probably already Billy Badass before she joined the service, but
I'm sure. I wonder where she got that from.
This was not for me. This was from hard-earned life experience. School of Knox kind of thing.
But I mean, you're not against civilians owning weapons, obviously, right? I mean, granted, soldiers generally have obviously a better, more experience with weapons. But just because you're not military doesn't mean that you shouldn't own a firearm. I just think that everybody should be trained.
I don't think that Americans should be deprived of their rights to buy pretty much, most things that they want to buy. I mean, I'm a little concerned that they would buy, nuclear weapons or ricin packets or something like that.
Yeah, how's that scare you, Aron? I used to train people to operate 150 megawatt reactor cores. Think about that. Yeah, you're worried about a little fucking gun? No, I had a damage to destroy an entire city with nuclear radiation. So
the way I look at it now is if you think you need your gun to protect you against the government, you're going to bring a pistol to a drone fight?
No, I've said the same thing. Yeah. Having weapons because of worried about the government, being some kind of militaristic thing taking over your properties like that. Yeah, you're going to be screwed one way or another, right? Yeah. So that's not the reason to own a firearm. But personal safety, I'm fine with.
I have a problem. It's a funny thing that in my youth, when I was in my 20s, I actually did carry a medieval battle axe.
That's when they were invented about that time, right?
I know that story. I'm not even kidding. I had it in my car where I could grab it in a moment if I needed it. And I practiced with this.
Were they considered new back then? Was that a new weapon?
Though, because if anybody could get away with carrying around a medieval battle axe anywhere, it would be you.
Yeah, I'd be more like a rapier or a.
It's a funny thing that when you're in your 20s, the way that testosterone affects you, that somehow this is justified. And at some point, I realized when I was in my 30s that all these medieval weapons that I held on to and that I had professionally sharpened and tempered and everything, I realized these are just for turning people into meat.
Do you want to know how crazy it is that at Blacklab3l Copwatch mentioned this at the beginning of the show, how he liked the thumbnails of the Kent Hovind videos? They all feature you in medieval garb. Yielding a sword.
Some kind of medieval weaponry of some sort.
It's like I could channel that.
Do you own a mace or a flail?
I don't have any of my weapons on my property anymore. I've relinquished them all to somewhere else so that they're not in-house any longer. Some of them were pretty awful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I had an axe that I could throw like a spear that would pierce both your nipples at the same time. But
I don't know if I'm turned off or offended right now.
Yeah, wait a minute. I want to see that in
action. Yeah, it just seemed wiser not to have these things in the house.
Probably a wise decision. A couple more super chats. Cookie Nibs, $10. I would totally call cops for smelly smoke from a barbecue. If I can smell it, you must share it. I agree with that, right? Friendly neighbors.
Yeah. But that goes back to what I said before. Bring over a rack of pork ribs.
Fuck yes.
That's like a minimum contribution to the fire, right?
And a Sandring, $10. I'll debate Aron. What you think? Debate which My Little Pony is best. LOL. You know what? I don't know what would happen to my reality if I found out that Aron Ra was a brony.
Oh,
I don't know if I can handle that.
It has to be true.
Your reality is secure.
Okay,
sir.
good. I'm not trying to judge. Nothing against bronies, guys. Watch what you want to watch. I've never seen one, so I can't really be. I've seen excerpts from them.
It's
but
different. It's different. It's a different thing. I will say that it's different.
I mean,
sure.
I get the furry thing, kind of, maybe.
I don't even get the furry thing.
I don't know. I'm trying.
Whatever.
But whatever.
Yeah, I don't even get the furry thing.
Barely. I just.
Black Label, where do you fall on furries?
Should we do furry audits?
Don't answer questions. I plead the fifth.
Wise man.
That was the wisest response I've ever heard on the NonSequitur show.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have too many wise responses on this show.
We're gonna let you guys close us out by saying any last minute thoughts that you have, or especially letting everybody know where they can find you. And I would just want to say two things. If you can, make sure that you support both these gentlemen. I'm sure I know Aron's got a Patreon. I don't know about Black Label, but whether they take donations or a Patreon, go out and support them. They're doing really good work, and they're making change happen. And that's something that I think needs to be supported and make sure that it continues to happen. So with that, we'll let them. Black Label, we'll start with you. You can let everybody know where to find you, where to support you, and then any last minute thoughts that you have.
Sure. You can find me. My website is blacklabelcopwatch.com. It's where I post a lot of just articles that deal with cop news and auditing news. Also, my YouTube channel is just called Black Label Copwatch. It's very easy to find. The only thing I would have to say is that just be careful when you're out there dealing with police. Just be careful, how you react with them, because they worry about us. They're trained to think that citizens are the enemy, and that's not the way it should be. I think what we do with cop watching and auditors, I think our main job and our main focus, the mission is to educate the public, to let them know that they do have rights. That if you don't use them, you're eventually going to end up losing them, and that's not what we want. I want my son and my kids to grow up in a world where they can actually walk down the street without being accosted, for what they're doing, and which is completely legit and legal and innocent. There's nothing wrong with filming or taking pictures in public. And then, that's pretty much it. And, I always have this tagline that I like to use at the end of the show. Let
me stop you right there, Black Label, because that's what I was actually going to tell you. I want you to close out the when after Aron goes, we'll let you close out with that and your voice modulator. I think that'd be a cool way to do it.
But yeah, definitely. I'll definitely do that when he's done. But again, guys, just, always record to police and everything you do, because it could save your ass in many different ways. And it also could find those bad ones that should not be on the force. And also, just one real last thing I'm going to say is also, please also record those good cops. Let the world see that we do have good cops out there, if there are any. And I will say this, that in my opinion, there are good cops out there, but they're too afraid to make themselves known because of that thin blue line.
And the link to subscribe to Black Label Copwatch is in the video description, and I did put in the live chat. I mean, obviously he has a large channel, but you know what? We could probably double that. Let's help to get him to 200,000, because he's at like 111,000. But even that, I think, is quite low for what you guys do. And I was complimenting on her and the live chat, and I'm just really supportive of you guys. So support their channels,
and definitely support this next gentleman getting ready to close us out, because he definitely is affecting change. I read all the time comments, even on our videos, because he is on several, about how he's either changed their mind or I have actual close personal friends that I didn't even know watched our show that reach out and say that Aron changed the way they even teach in their own classrooms. So make sure you definitely support this next one. But after you, sir.
Thank you very much. That is humbling, to say the least. I don't have anything to add. This is not on my. This show is not about me. So let's refer back to Cop Blocker.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I love that. Cop Blocker.
You promised me that you would not do that to me at the beginning of the show.
He said he wouldn't call you poopy head, is what he said, if you remember correctly. Or that he would call you poopy head. I don't remember. One or the other. Poopy head.
All right, now, guys, we'll be back. Actually, Steve, are we going to talk about the church thing tomorrow?
Is that tomorrow?
It's Saturday.
Yeah,
I mean,
I guess
you want
so.
to talk about
Yeah. Let's bring it up. And by the way, he can do his outro. I just want to let you know, after he does his outro, I'll do my outro, but we'll be hot mic'd, so I can't turn it off. So don't talk shit about me when we're off air, because we won't be off air. Here you go.
I like how you put that that little disclaimer in there. We'll update you. There was a report that came out this week about the Catholic Church and a lot of ugly things that happened. And Steve and I thought that we would get with KC and do a little talk about it. We're actually going to get the Friendly Atheist to come on in either next week or the next to go into it in detail, because he was the one that did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've talked. Did you know what? Do we have that interview?
We've already had him.
Yeah, but
we've already had him on.
We published that interview, didn't we?
No, not yet.
Oh,
not on. Oh yes, to YouTube we have.
But we haven't published
did
it. Okay, but we haven't published it.
We haven't published on the podcast.
Because we have interviewed Hammett, but we
want to have him back on here to go into it in a little bit more detail, because he did a blog.
Casey and I we've started major dumpster fires on Twitter because of our stance on this whole issue that's going on with the church. And my last post, I mean, in one day, just when I put it out, like within hours, it had almost 200 likes and like 70 retweets or something.
So we'll go through it tomorrow.
And we're going to be going through those things tomorrow because we have a lot to say on this particular issue.
Yeah. So stay tuned to that. We'll let you know what time, either tonight or tomorrow, we'll post that, because it's an impromptu kind of thing. But make sure that you join us Tuesday, where Alex Jones's wife will be joining us to discuss her thoughts on Alex Jones getting banned, her custody war with Alex Jones, and what it was like actually living with the man. So at this time, we're going to say goodnight. We're going to let Blacklab3l Copwatch, not Blocker, take us out with his tagline. So whenever you're ready, sir.
All right. I appreciate you guys taking me on tonight. And guys, when you're out there dealing with any type of law enforcement, be safe, be vigilant, and know your rights.
Thanks, guys.
Killer.
That was so sexy.
We still got 15 seconds, guys. Remember where we're hot mic'd, aren't we, Steve?
We are.
We're
Good night, everybody.
All right, take care.
We're so professional.